Great to have you with us. In our first story, one person has died with several others in critical condition after a Tema-bound fuel tanker veered into the Accra-bound lane of the motorway, crashing into two oncoming vehicles. The tanker driver lost control while attempting to dodge a vehicle which has suddenly exited a branch road onto the motorway, few meters from the Ashaiman overhead bridge. For more than 2 hours, as rescue efforts were made by other road users, emergency response was absent. We'll hear first from the eyewitness who, by themselves, elected to rescue the victims whilst they waited for help. But before that, here's a driver of a Sprinter bus, one of the vehicles involved, narrating what happened.
Oh, na me ba no, na enso epitika krakra. Enti dem me drew bridge me say trailer no ase o twa ne ho. Enti no trailer we o ya ba yen kwam. Enti me ye ready man no. Enti dem say head no atra gota no na trailer no abufa so e ba yen kwam na me dodge no fa tiro no. Na car na di meti no enti me dodge no na o chia no. Okay. Into would all who in temp and all in temper. Into who see boy can watching. Oh, no, can in batim. I mean, in me a full set. Okay. And me full way until OBS and it's a 4 gratis, see a 4 minutes in the car, and in a single on. And Sena Nipana Adnayan, yet me, Pia gate, a mere Nipana over front, and me piano. And I feel in cover a PP ever, and I'm one okay, the last more day and now call a microphone more prior. No, said you're more hospital. Say for no wow, hospital. And then the police for about before.
We can now listen to Emmanuel Amwa and Michael Asare, who led the rescue efforts at the scene.
No can is cement and a jump in a Newton head. It's in a call, different road, no Nakasha car. Nakasha Canada spot in the Impa Bakuya day. We Kafnus on me, or more inside normal paper. The metam na 5:30 me ambulance free ambulance driver be ahead am basis is here ya you mo ka say 5 cents no dey o mo buy na chese bra ya brands and ya tumi asoba bi yi nyimpa no na masa e ya ahomete I say na wo ka na mo yi nipa pacho me first person am be car no am started there me why car answer me bra we obanse me bra we na me sma na okafa hama na ye dey bo hama chisir bia enye dey enka won say ama no company ye dey bo and say yetumi yi driver and say two na over front they say you want to back on Nassini, ebubu, never back on so one side, why they why yamedi. Now, we would that. First accident in this year, yes, Raggy, be no way. Just as we pray, they no way. And car the sports, no, fire service can it me by. Still, I know me. I don't think now, more fan to car be more baby. Satam of I ain't me, you know. Why say we pray? So what that front say? Mo definitely has say but ohuni ha ohumi all right. But struggle say bet me a wife enimu no. Ye nya hwe hama na e de bokra no hama no kwa NY force. Ye why you cry there baby amu akomu no. Say sasom. Ni e de ye twi. Enu kra ye twi emba. It's traffic ankasa e ba hanu pa. The policeman to me ba say ne bisasa. What mean fire service and ambulance and also are from Momoba. More than 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Busy by this time will be a man. Ye nipping in our car. No, my saying. Oh, I'm walking. We pride on your car driver. No, Baku any name. Bakuna, you say, why in your media? Only extra first, best 1 hour on we. Yet to me, why can't any day? You know. Tika ususu say tika munya ambulance and fire service e mane ban tema nka obetimi saving of course omo bad anka obetimi obenya nkwa as na time ye yi no to nkwa ba ye wana wana odefa mi no kra na ambulance bia amba fire service ma na just the moje na e wono no nti ka bia mpeze oba dey oba fa na to ne car no mu enu na oma ma yesu yegina ho ye kasakasa ma o ye dey ode hwe no nkwa no nti drivers.
We'll bring you more on this story later, but the police have clapped for the lawyers to go down and intervene the hashtag FixThe Country protesters clash with the police. Now, the protesters have been sued by the Ghana Police Service, seeking to stop them from embarking on a street protest, citing COVID-19 restrictions. We'll hear from court correspondent Joseph Akable in a bit. But first, listen to a member of the group, Ernesto Yeboah, who spoke earlier on Prime Morning.
Yeah, Joy, take a good video. These men here said, almost said, when we got here, the first comment was, you will not let FixThe Country, you will not let you in.
Entrance when the protesters attempted to gain access to the court premises in order to monitor the case that has been filed against them by the Ghana Police Service. The case was called at 9 a.m. and the judge had to put the case on hold as she was informed by the lawyers that the protesters were being prevented from coming into the courtroom. The protesters claim that they did not do anything to merit the force that they alleged the police to have used in order to prevent them from...
So we said, first they said stand back. So we said, oh, okay. So we thought they just wanted to engage, and they said, you can't come in. Then we said, why can't we come in? They said, no, because you're not allowed in. They said, but we've been asked to come to court. So how can you tell us that we can't come in? So then I said, okay, I'm taking my phone out. I'm going to do a video. I want you to repeat what you just said on video. So I decided to do a Facebook Live. So while taking that video, and then he said, why are you? Then he took the phone, and of course you saw him trying to drag me, also trying to get the phone out of my hands, and then just telling us that we can't come in, we need to get our lawyers. At that point, they realized, so that's basically what happened. It was just first of all, in the morning, we're supposed to meet at TUC. The police went there in their numbers, they gathered there in their numbers to wait for us. I don't know what they thought was going to happen.
At 4 a.m.
4 a.m. At 4 a.m. they were at TUC waiting for us to do what? When people need the police, you're calling them because some armed robbers are in your house. They can't even turn up. But Nyamabi said, yeah, they've managed to find the time and the energy and the resources to gather themselves. Look at us. How many of us are there? Why do you need that level of aggression at the gates when we've been called to come to court? And so...
But they make the point that the manner by which you are coming, the judge eventually says you shouldn't come in groups, you should come individually.
What's the manner? A manner of 5 or 6 people entering a room. This is a manner.
The judge did make it clear that if you do not have the conveners here in court, I will not sit on the case. So how do you stop us and insist that our representatives are in? You know, and they manhandled her. How can you be pulling her and pushing her just because you wanted to claim her phone?
One of them actually had the audacity to say to me, if I wasn't working, you would have seen what I would do to you. And the other ones were agreeing with him. This is people that we pay with our taxes have the audacity to open their mouths and tell citizens that if I was not working, you would have known what I would do to you. So literally, so this is what he did when there was cameras, it was in public. Can you imagine what he would have done if it was a private place?
ACP Kwesi Forio of the Greater Accra Region Police has been offering some explanations as to why his men had to prevent them from coming.
And that individually, they can come in to the court. But looking at the premises, the police are here, one, to provide adequate security for the court building and all the other courts therein. So, coming en masse with placards, flags, and other paraphernalia, among other things, that they could leave those placards, they could leave the flags, and then also, limit that militancy and go to the court as individuals. So that was the position of the police, but that was misconstrued. But at the end of the day, the police balance issues, and they were in, to appear before the court.
The protesters say that your men must have used a bit of violence. They told the court that one of them is injured and requires medical attention. Was that level of force necessary? They were just carrying a flag, a Ghana flag for that matter.
I think that is an issue of the court as a police.
The protesters had indicated that the police application asking that they are restrained from embarking on the street protest, they've now engaged lawyers and it has just been brought to their attention, and so they needed some more time to file their responses. So the court adjourned proceedings to June 14 to enable them file that particular response. But the judge also gives some directions indicating that subsequently when they are coming into the court premises, they should come individually and there is no need for them to gather and come in such a manner that could potentially affect the peace around the court and its premises. This is the situation here. The case continues on June 14. My name is Joseph Akable. I'm reporting for Joy News from the Law Courts Complex.
Let's go back to our earlier story. Manuel Kranting is standing by to bring us the very latest from the Tema motorway accident. Manuel, what's the latest regarding the accident? Right, Manuel Kranting will soon join us.
Daniel, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, Manuel. What's the latest?
Also, we're learning that a fuel tanker rode on the stretch by a vehicle, and so the driver lost control when then the bulk of the vehicle just somersaulted, entering into the other lane. It ran into oncoming vehicles, and we're learning that one person has unfortunately lost his life. Here at the Tema General Hospital, from where I'm reporting to you right now, there are 7 people who were brought here some hours after the accident, and out of the 7, 1 person arrived dead. The other 6, 3 are responding to treatment and are being stabilized, with 3 others, in critical condition. And so that's just a bit of update on what exactly happened this morning, Daniel.
We understand that there was heavy traffic on the road, and the emergency services, it took them a while to get there. Do we know why it took them so long? Have the authority
first responders on why they delayed? But eyewitnesses on the ground tell me that for well over 2 hours after the incident had actually occurred, several calls to get fire service, ambulance, and even in some instances the police service to arrive at the scene proved futile. And indeed, one of the victims who just struggled to speak to me told me that it was by the benevolence of a private citizen who was driving a V8 who used his V8 to transport them to the Tema General Hospital. So for the eyewitnesses, even up until about 8 o'clock, when we were speaking to them, they are still not seeing personnel from the Ghana National Ambulance Service or from the fire service. They had to, cut through the debris and the rubidiums to be able to cut through the metal of the vehicle, which was at this time molded, in the debris, Daniel. And that's being the explanation that we've gotten from those who were bystanders. What they suspect is that the thick traffic, and there was traffic well over 5 kilometers from that particular spot. And if you notice what happened, well over 5 kilometers of traffic with people struggling to beat the Friday morning rush hour, Daniel.
You're describing a very unfortunate scene with people struggling to speak. I'm sure that their conditions are very critical, but tell us about the family members.
The assisting with the investigation. But right here at the Tema General Hospital, we've been able to get a family member of one of the victims who are learning has lost her husband in this particular accident. Ivy, she tells me her name. Ivy, grateful that you agreed to speak to me under such very difficult circumstances. How did you learn of this incident?
We were in the morning. We were in the house this morning, and then they called us that an accident happened in the motor.
And that's Manuel Kranting. They're speaking to has been retrieved from a tunnel as a Gbani mine in the Talensi district of the Upper East region. This brings the death toll to 9. The miners were trapped underground after water rushed into their mining pit following a downpour Monday night. They died as a result of drowning. 9 bodies were recovered on Wednesday dawn and released to the families for burial, whilst 3 others remained. He has been released to his family for burial. In a related incident, suspected illegal miners at Nangruma in the Mamprugu Moduri district of the Northeast region have been attacked by some angry members of the community. 4 security guards of the mining site were injured and hospitalized, with 1 in critical condition. The mining site has since been closed down following the attack and has begun. Joy News' Ilyasu Tanko joins us with further details. Ilyasu, tell us about this community and the extent of the illegal mining activities there.
Well, Daniel, we know that this community has been known for the Galamsey activities for quite a year now, for several years now, so to speak. And there has been tension brewing between the miners and the community recently, especially when the operation against illegal miners across the country began in the area. And they are also accusing the mining company of destroying their farmlands and water sources. And so yesterday, they stormed this particular mining pit, this particular mining concession, chased away the workers and closed down the mining company as we speak. We understand all the staff, all the workers of this particular mining company have fled site, and the community has been treated at the health facility in the community, the Nangruma health facility. That is where they are currently being treated. We understand they are all in stable condition, except one person who we are told is currently in a critical condition.
Ilyasu Tanko, thank you very much for joining us with those updates from Nangruma. Away from that story, daughter of the late former president, Jerry John Rowlings, Dr. Zanetta Rowlings, is cautioning against mistakes or activity, principles of probity and accountability, which led to the June 4 revolution. She was speaking to Joy News' Kwesi Parker-Wilson ahead of this year's celebration. Also, Director of Elections for the NDC, Elvis Ifeyi-Ankrah, says the party will continue to commemorate June 4 revolution in spite of the demise of the former president, Jerry John Rowlings. This, he believes, will preserve the legacy of Mr. Rowlings. Mr. Ifeyi-Ankrah was also speaking to Joy News ahead of the 42nd anniversary of the June 4 uprising. My colleague, Kwesi Parker-Wilson, is at the event and joins us for more. Parker, it rained this morning heavily in Accra. Did that affect the celebration?
Daniel, not at all. It did not affect the celebration. In fact, many of us thought that the NDC were going to postpone the celebration. But however, in spite of the heavy downpour and the direction of the rain, which was actually affecting the national chairman, the general secretary of the party, they still proceeded with the event. Now, speakers after speakers, the speakers will take their turn to address the supporters of today's event. And you can hear a clap just behind me. Yeah. The general secretary of the party just finished addressing the supporters and dignitaries who have gathered here. Now, one key thing he said, and this is preamble to his statement, that he made a call to the NDC supporters. He asked them to refrain from activities that could actually undermine the unity and strength of the party. He believes that the stronger the NDC becomes, that is how they are preserving the memory and the legacy of the late former president, Jerry John Rowlings. So that was his call. Now, he moved on to the conversation for today, which he established in his own view that the ills of the society, as it were then before the revolution, is still well and alive in our current dispensation. And so we all have to be careful not to go the path that we went when Rowlings took over the revolution. So the slippery path is questioning every individual to return to the path of progress where we can unite the country. In fact, he cited the issue about lawlessness and discipline and what he calls rule by law and not rule of law in this country. So these are some of the reasons General Secretary of the NDC assigned to what he believes our current situation that could equally undermine the democracy that we are currently enjoying.
Parker-Wilson, thank you very much for joining us with those updates. Meanwhile, former President John Dramani Mahama has been reflecting on a day like this without Rowlings. Let me share with you details from a press statement he shared a couple of hours ago. Now, the statement says for the first time, the people of Ghana, comrades, supporters and sympathizers of the National Democratic Congress, NDC, will commemorate the June 4 uprising without the inspirational and arresting physical presence of the founder of our party, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rowlings, retired. A former president who departed from us last that represents a major landmark in our nation's existence. Together with its sister event, the 31st December Revolution, the two shaped the course of Ghana's history, resulting in a turnaround in Ghana's economic fortunes and the advent of the Fourth Republic. 42 years on, our economy and democracy are in dire straits. Economic hardship, insecurity, political and ethnic polarization, deepening inequality, politicization of our democratic institutions, corruption, serious problems in the education and health sectors are challenges Ghanaians are confronted with in our daily lives. This has led to a crisis of confidence in the political leadership. Ghana is a country with exceptional human talent. Time is ticking fast, and yet we can make things right if we work as one nation with a common destiny. As I've said in the past, broad consultations and consensus building does not take anything away from the leader. Broad consultations that bring the best and brightest together with stakeholders can forge consensus around issues such as economic recovery strategy, our implementational challenges of free SHS in the national interest, and others. The value that June 4 espoused some 4 decades ago remain as relevant today as ever before in our nation's democratic journey. He says June 4 engendered hope in our people that the ills of our society would be rooted out and replaced with values of virtue and honesty. You're live on Joy News Today with me, Daniel Dazi. We'll be back with more after these messages. Stay with us. You're live on Joy News Today. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, Joy News has gotten the green light to broadcast a documentary on the former FDA lawyer's alleged negotiation of bribes. Now, we have with us Manai, how the substantive matter is determined. But in court today, Justice William Bwampong of the Accra High Court threw out her application, citing the media's right to publish. Investigative journalist and producer of that documentary, Manasa Zuriawuni, joins us in studio with more. So how does this feel to chalk this victory?
Well, it feels good and a bit frustrating too, because at the very beginning, I knew it was just a waste of time, because as the judge said, the radio version of the documentary had been told, and as our lawyers, Samson argued, the publication was a matter of fact, and if she sued for defamation, the judge said whatever that a court decides, if she wins, she can still be compensated for damages or the damage caused to her reputation. So there was really no need to stop this documentary from airing. The judge went on to also even mention that the Constitution places some responsibility on us, the media, to help the public to also access information which is guaranteed in Chapter 21 of the Constitution. So, in doing our work, we should not be unnecessarily impeded. And he mentioned the fact that throughout the injunction, defamation cases he read, he realized that they always is a awarding of cost to compensate whoever has had the damages to the person whose reputation has been destroyed or...
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So in that regard, there was no need to hold on to the publication of this story.
Okay.
But, you know, the original date for the publication was the 12th of November 2020. So this is about the 7th month.
That's long.
That's long.
What was in the documentary itself? Or what is in the documentary?
Yes, what is in the documentary has to do with investigating her. But the allegation is that she demanded $200,000 from the producer of Kwa FS. And then The man came the following day to give her 600,000 Ghana cedis cash. And she returned it later. And part of the reason was that the negotiation was that he would give $100,000 to the FDA CEO and also give $100,000 to her, the FDA lawyer at the time. But the man came with $600,000, sorry, 600,000 cedis, meaning that the $500,000 represented $100,000
yeah,
for the CEO.
For the CEO, and not her herself.
Yes, and for herself, she asked for $100,000
for herself.
Herself, and not 100,000
okay,
cedis.
We'll get the details, but I'm curious about this. We know the FDA lawyer has been sacked by the FDA.
Yes.
And there are some other repercussions, but none of this links back to the CEO?
No, for the CEO, the FDA's internal inquiry, which they did, exonerated the CEO of wrongdoing.
Okay.
That is what we know.
Okay, okay. Let's look at a quick peek, a quick preview of what's in the documentary, then we wrap up.
In less than 4 weeks, the swelling...
He was on the standard TB medication, but when he added the COA, his coughing reduced, he became stronger, he could go to farm.
Until the regulator stepped in.
It's the same container. No. Oh, no. They gave it to us, and so with your own containers. It's the same container, you can ask them.
But there was more to the tussle than technicalities.
I didn't know that I was coming to pay money, so I can give you check. So no, I don't want check. I want cash.
And the exchange rate of the bribe negotiated in dollars.
What does that mean? Because $100,000, if you were giving her that, would translate into 587. Is that not correct?
Is that correct?
Manasseh, it's interesting.
The returned bribe.
So that's a sneak peek of that documentary. When are we seeing it?
Well, management of the multimedia group would take that decision, but we will inform our audience as soon as that decision is taken.
Thank you very much, Manasseh Azuri-Awoni, for bringing us those details. You're live on Joy News today with me, Daniel Daze. Stay with us. You're live on Joy News today. Let's do business. And the State's Interest and Governance Authority says state-owned enterprises will begin to pay a penalty if they do not meet targets within time frames set. According to the Director General, these enterprises accumulate debts and do not account for it. The penalty will, he will ensure that the enterprises operate up to standards, and that's the purpose for the penalty. Stephen Asamoah revealed to Joy Business this is among some strategies being implemented to make state-owned enterprises more profitable.
The performance contract system, which should have been here, was abandoned. About almost 7 years it had not been done. So 2017 I started it, and regularly every year we've put together a contract negotiation team that brings them together and they sign it. And it's not just signing and going away, we monitor it. We make sure that we stick to the targets that we agreed. And then the targets also affect their bonuses and affect their salaries. So then also we noticed that there were conflict zones within the setup. So that, for instance, the board and the management were not coordinating properly. So we set up to do the code of corporate governance. And when you have a good corporate governance system in place, everybody knows their role. And then we are now also, by the law, SIGA Act 990, also have the responsibility to sanction. In the past, there was none. And so people bring debt and there's no reason why they should bring debt and nobody punishes them. Now there is the punishment, indeed. It's a penalty. And we are forcing them to pay. And when they pay, they will be forced to come up to a standard. Well, it's a penalty point, so we're working with the Attorney General to convert it into cedis. But they would pay, when they pay and pay through their bonus from their pocket, they know that they have to do the job.
Away from that story, board chairman of the ARB Apex Bank, Dr. Tony Orbin, is urging government to collaborate with the rural and community banks for a successful implementation of the new Development Bank of Ghana. According to him, rural and community banks are already focused on development banking and are well positioned. He spoke at the 40th anniversary lecture of the Amenfiman Rural Bank in Takwa. Prince Apia reports.
Government this month signed a €170 million agreement with the European Investment Bank to establish the Development Bank Ghana. The non-deposit taking bank will provide funds to qualifying financial institutions to provide long-term lending in addition to other services. Board chair of ARB Apex Bank, Dr. Tony Orbin, says rural and community bank must be considered for partnership in implementation.
Inception of the development bank, which the government just announced, I think there should be a major link between the development bank that the government has conceived with the rural banks, because that is where development is actually done. So development banks must not be in Accra alone or in Kumasi or in the big places, but even if they are there, they should have a strong link with the rural banks and through Apex Bank. Then the rural banks could be the kind of the fulcrum. It's very central. We are too much used to doing things with the big boys. I think it is time for us to look at the banks that are closer to the people, because we know how to deal with them, because we are closer to them. So I think we need to try and harness these opportunities that the rural banks do have because of their location and of their specialized knowledge of those localities. So I think the development bank that is coming would do well to actually look at collaborating effectively with some of the rural, in fact with the rural banks. I won't say even some, but with the rural banks.
He spoke at the Amenfiman Rural Bank anniversary lecture under the theme Championing Excellence in Rural Banking to commemorate 40 years of impact by the bank. Mr. Kojo Mata is MD for the ARB Apex Bank.
Even as corporate governance directives have come, we are helping the RCBs to comply. So compliance support is at two levels, from Bank of Ghana point and from ARB Apex Bank. So the rural banks are well regulated.
CEO Dr. Alex Asma says the next phase of the bank will focus on partnerships with the
Our special focus has been on the micro, small and medium enterprises, because to us that is the base of the country's economy that needs most attention, and so that's where our focus has been and continue to be. So we will continue to support individual businesses, we continue to support entrepreneurs to develop their businesses. At 40, we think that there's more that is expected of us, there's more that we can do. Our vision is that we consolidate the gains that we have made over the past years and solidifying ourselves in the industry as the leaders and continue to inspire and to lead excellence in our industry.
The bank has therefore committed 8% of its profits to establish a university in Wase Kopon. A special fund has also been set up to support technical and vocational training. Prince Apia reporting.
You're live on Joy News today, and that's business. Up next is sports with Muftar Nabila.
And that is Fred Achampon there. Now let's do facilities that ensures that football pitches are in good shape for clubs to have the best of games. Clubs in Kumasi Metropolis have described the poor nature of football pitches in the National League. Coaches and football administrators say that the nature of the playing surfaces reduces the lifespan of players. There's more in the following report.
This is the Central Police Park in the Kumasi metropolis. It is one of the venues for the National Juvenile League as Sukot Royals and Gihok Babies go head-to-head for 3 precious points. The 2 under-15 teams boast of talented footballers, but the poor nature of pitches in Kumasi militate against their development. Kwanza Ephraim Kweku, head coach of Asukot Royals, is a worried man.
Generally, it affects them because it reduces the lifespan of a player. An active player should play at least 2 decades of football. But with this field, it can give you up to 12 years of football, which is very bad. It affects the development of the player, ball-wise, health-wise, economic-wise, and any other thing. In its bid to develop football talent in Kumasi, Wembley Sports is constructing 3 AstroTurfs. The Kokoasi School Park and the Lebanon Club Park, all in the Bantama constituency, are nearing completion, while work on the Dichemso AstroTurf is progressing steadily. Dr. Ali Yaba, head coach of Gihok Babies, underlines the importance of AstroTurfs in football talent development.
The first time we will have the opportunity to play on them is extra motivation. And then the style of play, so far as the development of the player is concerned, is also crucial. Because I told you that our style of play depends on the pitches. So if you don't see the football flowing like you may see on other pitches, it's not because the players are that bad, but we try to adjust to the situation on the ground. So if we had access to the AstroTurfs for training and then for matches, you would have seen a different brand of football. Because
from Juvenile League, let's do the Ghana Premier League, where the weekend of matches will have so many derbies as Accra Hearts of Oak play Great Olympics and Asante Kotoko will face Ashanti Gold on Monday. But on Saturday, we'll have Midiama SC come up against Carolina United. Bekum Chelsea will play King Faisal, Dreams FC versus Elmina, Sharks Episode Dwarfs versus Ediana Stars, Great Olympics versus Hearts of Oak, Liberty Professional versus Wafa, 11 Wonders versus Bechem United. And on Monday, we'll have Legon Cities come up against Inter Allies. For Great Olympics, the good news is that head coach of the national team, CK Akuno, have released their skipper in the person of Glassender Wako to join the team and play that match. And also, Chelsea have extended the contract of Thomas Tuchel to June 2024 after he led them to win the UEFA Champions League. It's been a pleasure coming your way with Sports on Joy News today. I am Muftau Nabila Ablai. Up next is Showbiz.